Chess Diagnostic.
Hello everybody, and welcome to position 13 of my Complete Chess Endgame course. All these positions are based off Grandmaster Ram, and we're still in King-Pawn endings. There's going to be a total of 19 positions, so we're about 2/3 of the way through. Now, all these positions I'm analyzing are basic endgames, but as we go on, the complexity increases, even though they're basic positions, and they're kind of the building blocks of chess mastery according to Grandmaster Ram. But really what they are is their complete education in chess activity and endgame concepts. So in this position, with white to move, just know that with white or black to move, it's a win either way for white. And the main concept in this position is called the distant opposition. Now, we've already reviewed this concept, but basically, the opposition is when the kings are fighting for a certain square or a certain group of squares, and they're fighting for control in order to queen a pawn. So for white, for example, he wants to push this pawn, of course. And this square is hard for white to control because if he just moves his king forward, for example, or if he moves his king forward, then the black king can take the opposition, controlling these squares. So because he has the opposition, white is forced to move, because if he advances his pawn, then either white loses it or he forces a draw with a stalemate, because there's no move for black to make. Otherwise, he has to step away and allow black to take that pawn. So if we go back to the initial position, he can't allow that. So the opposition is fighting for a group of squares. And the way to do that practically, or how to analyze it, is to keep an odd number of squares between you and the opponent, with the opponent to move. Now, if that sounds complicated, it's really not. So it could be one square, as in this example where he goes king to e6. Notice that it's white to move, and there's one square. So basically in that position he has, or black has, the opposition. So if we take that a step further, if there's 3 squares, which is an odd number, or if there's 5 squares, which is an odd number, then whoever is to move is on the losing side of the opposition. So since it's white to move in this position, we can practically figure out that if he plays king to e4 or king to f5, for example, either where. Now, if black, since black can't move here, if black moves forward, for example here, then we would just play king to f5. And now because there's one odd square in front, black is forced to give way of the opposition. Either if he moves back, we'll just come in, king to g6, snap this pawn up, and now we're 2 pawns up, and it's an easy win. So if black puts up a stiffer resistance, if he plays king to e8, then we play king to f4. Now notice, black played the correct response, keeping 3 squares between the kings with white to move. So white has to play the correct response, because if he moves king to f5, then black will play the correct response, and then we'll have to start over again. We'll end up with the starting position. So if instead he plays the correct response of king to f4, if black plays king to f8, then we can start making some headway with king to e5. And now we're threatening, if black plays here, we just move forward, like this. Now we've just gained the opposition. If black moves forward here, then we play king to f5. Now he'll move back, we win the pawn, and we'll pretty much just usher our pawns in, and there's really nothing that black can do. We end up with 2 queens, and that's a very easy win. So in this initial position, it looks like there's a lot of different possibilities, and you'll find this in simple in simple king and pawn endings. One simple move could lead to a loss. Well, in this type of position, you need to have a command of your understanding of the opposition so that you don't make a mistake in not controlling the right squares at the right time, because timing is one of the most important concepts in the endgame. All right, so we're going to look at this from black to move, and we'll basically just review the same concepts, but with black to move. All right, so with black to move, this is actually an even easier position for white to play, because with black to move, white can gain the opposition or the direct opposition immediately. So the distant opposition is when there's more than one square determining who has opposition. That's the distant opposition. The direct opposition is where, for example, if black plays king to f7, then white plays king to f5, and now there's one square, and black is forced, because of this pawn, to step back and allow white to invade his position, win another pawn, and white's just going to be up 2 queens, and there's nothing for black to do. So, for example, from the initial position, if black tries to be a little more tricky and plays king to e8, then, of course, white moves forward, gains the opposition, and then he's able to outflank black, gain control of this square, and black's only saving grace in this position would be a trap with king to h7, and now if white just queens, then it's actually a draw by stalemate because he has no move. So when you're playing these positions, I just want to make a point that you really need to keep an eye on when you're queening if there's stalemate, because it does happen a lot if you're not paying attention. I've seen it happen in a lot of tournament games by, you'd be surprised, expert and even lower rated master players will just queen in a time scramble and their opponent will shout hallelujah, it's a draw. I've done it a couple of times myself as well. So from this position, even though white has an easy win, or from this position, instead of playing the incorrect move of queening, white just actually has a mate in 2, where he can play king to f6, and now once he queens, then it's just mate on g7. All right, so this is position 13 of my Complete Chess Endgame course, and I really like this position because it clearly illustrates both the distant as well as the direct opposition, as well as stalemate tricks. And that's what you get with these simple positions. So I hope they stay interesting for you, and I'll see you in position 14. Have a good day.